The show from the beginning, you know, I hate to say it, sarcasm alert. Trump was right again. I don't hate to say it. Trump was right again. The experts were wrong. I came up with that title because on the heels of reading about what's going on in Iran, which we're going to get into, it seemed like there was a series of about 10 things that were coming up that were examples of how the great Thomas Sowell, proving to be right again, says that most of today's calamities are caused by yesterday's solutions started by the experts. The experts are wrong. The Russian disinformation nonsense, that came up because Tulsi Gabbard is releasing information that's showing that we paid for gain of function research, including in Ukraine. We were told by the experts that when she brought that up a while ago, she was a Russian asset. When the Democrats have told us something is Russian disinformation, they've been wrong precisely 100% of the time. All the time. Every time. If you listen to them, you fell for it like a fish. Okay? Wrong. It is not disinformation. The laptop was not disinformation. The hoax was a hoax. The COVID vaccine doesn't work and was never intended to work. The masks didn't work. What else we get? Oh, we got to go back and say oil is not $200 per barrel like the experts told us. I can't talk. Everything I looked at, everywhere I went, we're not in a recession. We were told we were going to go into a recession. Everything. Now, is the deal done? No, it's not done. I'm going to pull up here in a second what I think is the latest, but we'll see. It's not done, but it's getting closer to done. All right, this is The Ordinary American. I'm your host, Paul Sarkis. This is Forgiveness Friday. Now, I did not wear Friday's shirt. There it is, because I've got the fancy mic on, and it wasn't working with that t-shirt very well. I thought it was pulling the collar down. So we're getting, oops, there, wait, where it is. There it is. We got the hook 'em horns getting ready for college football. Okay? So, Ordinary American, anti-leftist, anti-Democrat. If you're tuning in and you're a Democrat, we're here to change your mind. You've been tricked, you've been used, and you've been voting against your own self-interest, unless you're part of the elected class that's been getting rich by taking American dollars, or the elites or the experts, the nonprofits, etc., stealing our tax dollars. We're going to get into some of that too. All right, here's the latest. I think this is the latest. This is the latest I've seen. A broad regional peace deal is in motion covering Iran, Lebanon, Gulf states, and Israel. By the way, that's bigger than I think I heard last night. Self-defense rights remain untouched. Trump says, if Iran does not meet the obligation, I wouldn't expect the Israelis to not respond. That's a lot of double negatives. That actually doesn't sound like Trump, but maybe I'm sure it is. What is he saying? He's giving them a warning. Yeah, we'll do the deal we're talking about. As the great Ned tells me, including this morning, you cannot trust the Iranians. They are scumbags, and they will go back on their word all the time. This is why the experts, the through line of the show, this is how they're wrong about Trump. They've said, oh, it would have been so much better if he talked better and he didn't tweet such crass things. And why doesn't he talk like a president? He talks like a winner. And with regard to Iran, it's worked because Iran is a bunch of bullies, not the people of Iran, the IRGC, the mullahs, the regime. They're a bunch of bullies that have been having their way with the world for way too long. Let me just finish this. Sometimes these ceasefires are messy. Oh, you don't say. They take time to take root. Oh, yeah, we've noticed. The big test is whether Iran actually behaves or if this is just another temporary pause before the next explosion. Endgame or intermission? Question mark. We'll find out soon. All right? I don't know. We're going to find out. Here's what I do know. I do know that Trump handles them by saying the other night, he says, we're going to just keep on bombing the poop out of them. And then what happens? Then we get to this point. Why? A bully needs to be confronted by somebody equally as aggressive. All right? We've all seen the TV shows with the schoolyard bully. Once somebody gets up and punches the bully in the nose, things change. Trump is doing that. Or I always bring up the great American Western. That is what is happening in America, and that's who Trump is. He's the guy who comes in from out of town. He doesn't fit in the town. He's not polished. He doesn't look the way they think a sheriff should look or a statesman should look. But they have a problem. Somebody's controlling the town, and nobody in the town has the skill set, read male anatomy, to deal with it. He comes in and he handles it. He comes in and he says, "I'll bomb the poop out of them." Oh, and now they're listening to him. Why? Because he's done it. They have no more radars, nothing. They have basically not. I don't really even know the legless gay Ayatollah, like what he's up to, but he has nothing. Even Ned has said the drone attacks and other things, they're waning. Ned told us that 2 Kuwaiti super tankers got out the other day, the first 2 for Kuwait. Trump tells us 100 million barrels of oil he's been able to get out. Ned sent us something, which I'm going to show you in a second, if I can pull it up, which sort of confirms that, okay? But that's Trump getting us a return on our investment for this crazy situation in Iran. No more nuclear weapons. All right, the experts have been wrong, totally. I'm going to play this clip. Hold on, that's not what I want. I'm going to play this clip because it's the VP. Actually, I don't even think it's him talking, but it gives us a little bit of added information here. This is earlier today.
Foreign Minister Saeed Arghachi, who says the Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding has never been closer, pending its finalization. The media should refrain from entering speculation about its content in line with our responsible and transparent approach. All details will be shared with the public in due course. And of course, Sarah, that's the key to this, is if there's a deal pending, what is in this deal and what does that mean for global oil?
Okay. Now, the experts, even this morning, I just read something right before showtime. I just read something where another so-called expert is saying, well, we don't know that this is going to hold like all the others. No, we don't. Okay. But instead of always trying to prove Trump wrong, which has been a losing bet, try going with America. It's like these leftists, these Democrats root for Iran. It is disgusting. Okay. We're going to play here in a second. Ned sent us over a couple of videos. The people in the Middle East know the players in the Middle East better than we do. So we got the Crown Prince and we got a guy from, I think it's from UAE. And I want to play those and show them. The comparison I will make is that when we see that Rahman in her own district in LA couldn't get as many votes as Bass, couldn't get as many votes as Pratt, couldn't get as many votes as Steyer in the governor's race, that's an indication the people who know her best, her district, it's where she lives, it's where she established her political base, won't vote for her. That tells us something. When we want to ask what are the ramifications of Western cultures bringing in hordes of young Muslim men, well, we know it doesn't work. But here is, let me see if I can get this up. That is that one. Yeah, this is the first one I want to show. This is, I think, if I'm reading this right, it's 2017. So not recent, which is the purpose of sending this. The people in the Middle East, I wouldn't say they're laughing at Western culture, but let me see if I can get this to play.
Understand what I'm saying?
I have translation.
No, I know you have translation, but I just want to make sure you get it right. There will come a day that we will see far more radical extremists and terrorists coming out of Europe because of the lack of decision-making, trying to be politically correct, or assuming that they know the Middle East and they know Islam and they know the others far better than we do. And I'm sorry, but that's pure ignorance.
Okay? What's he saying? He's saying all those Western countries, ours included, that have been letting these young Muslim men in. Now, he doesn't use the word Islam, but he says terrorism. He says extreme terrorists. He's referring to the young Muslim men, and he's saying political correctness, or you think you know them better than we do. We want them gone. They're the ones that are causing us problems here. Good luck. You are destroying your country because now you're going to be producing the terrorists. You thinking you know more than us, you thinking you know these people who come from our countries better than we do is nonsense. Just like the people, they don't know they're saying it, but they're saying it. In Rahman's district in LA, you think you know her better than we do? You don't. She's a loser. Okay? This is another example of Trump being right. Close the borders. We played the other day that the border wall is now getting finished. Awesome. Okay? Close the borders. Stop letting people in. We don't have to be politically correct. They are not from the same culture. They are not equally as good as, say, an Irishman or an Englishman or a Frenchman or a German or a Dutch or somebody. They are not. Those are the places, typically Northern Europe, where immigrants have come from and come to America and done great things. These guys from the Middle East and from the Muslim countries, they are not the same. Trump talks about that openly. That's somebody from the Middle East, by the way, in a relatively very peaceful country, UAE, telling us. Okay? Now, here's the Crown Prince. This was a while ago. I think this was about 7 or 8 years ago, talking about Iran in the Ayatollah. And people want to criticize Trump. Experts were wrong again.
Called the Ayatollah Khamenei the new Hitler of the Middle East.
Absolutely.
Why?
Because he wants to expand. He wants to create his own project in the Middle East, very much like Hitler, who wanted to expand at the time. Many countries around the world and in Europe did not realize how dangerous Hitler was until what happened happened. I don't want to see the same events happening in the Middle East.
Does Saudi Arabia need nuclear weapons to counter Iran?
Saudi Arabia does not want to acquire any nuclear bomb. But without a doubt, if Iran developed a nuclear bomb, we will follow suit as soon as possible.
See that? Trump was right again. It's not just, does Iran get a weapon? Then there's the arms race, and everybody's got to get them. And then there's more. Trump is trying to get rid of the nuclear weapons. The experts told us, oh, Iran's not that big a threat. That's the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. Who knows them better than they do, us or them? Trump was right. The experts were wrong. This is Forgiveness Friday. So at the end, we're going to talk about forgiveness, and I will have to work on forgiving some of these experts. Okay? Forgiveness Friday. That's the Crown Prince telling us, you don't know, we know. That's UAE saying, you're letting all these young men in. You have no idea what you're doing. Well, we're finding that's true. Look at Europe. All right? Trump has been right about pretty close to everything. Everybody called him a lunatic, an idiot. He couldn't do it. The experts were wrong in 2015. All the neocons, wrong. He wins, wrong. Obama does a coup, wrong. Can't impeach him. They can't remove him even though they impeached him. It's not disinformation. It took us a while to find it. We need consequences, but wrong. They committed the coup and they were successful in 2020. There we were wrong. They did it. Okay. By the way, I'm a triple Trumper. 3 times I voted for him. Triple Trumper. He needed 3 votes to serve 2 terms. It shouldn't have been that way. All right. Experts are wrong. All right. We're going to move on. One of the things I talked about yesterday, and I apologize for the technical nonsense. I couldn't get anything to come up on the screen. Obviously today I can. I want to just go back and I want to play something that I was going to play yesterday. Okay. This is, let me see if I can get it up. All right. This is about the 2020 election. And it references the Time magazine article, which I'm going to pull up too. And I want to just play this, and I'll probably skip around a little bit, but just listen to this.
I want to ask about if you've changed position on what happened in the 2020 election.
Oh, I think it was rigged.
You think it was rigged?
Yeah, I know more now than I did then.
What'd you
All you
know?
have to do is in February of 2021, there was a Time magazine article that was published, and it was about Mark Zuckerberg investing $500 million in a Get Out the Democrat Vote campaign. And they focused on the swing states, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, and they focused, and what they did is they basically did what I would refer to as agency capture, and they went in and they captured the county clerks and the secretaries of states in these states, and they basically said, we have a Get Out the Vote campaign program, and if you will implement it exactly the way that we say that you must implement it, we will give you massive amounts of money to run your elections.
Mhm.
But if you do not run it the way that we say, then we can claw all that money back.
All right, now she oversimplifies it a little bit. The Time magazine article that she's referring to, which I described yesterday, I'm not going to go too deep into it, but I do just want to show you a couple of lines from it. One of the things that she mentions in there that we mentioned yesterday was that, okay, there it is. This is the title: The Secret History of the Shadow Campaign That Saved the 2020 Election. I framed it to you yesterday as this is the left trying to say that the conspiracy and the coup was a good thing because we were doing it for good. We were righteous. Democracy was in trouble. Trump was cheating. No, it turned out to be the opposite. They were cheating. Okay? Now, this woman, Molly Ball, total idiot. Okay? She describes the entire conspiracy. Her word, not mine. Listen to this. Can you see that? Hold on, let's get that blown up a little bit more. Okay? We're going to read this. There was a conspiracy unfolding behind the scenes, one that both curtailed the protests and coordinated the resistance from the CEOs. Those are her words. There was a conspiracy. Not my words, not Trump's words. There was a conspiracy, meaning there was more than one person. She's talking about the CEOs of major companies, Jack Dorsey and others. Mark Zuckerberg is one of the people. That's only one of the things that are mentioned in here. Okay, both surprises were the result of an informal alliance between left-wing activists and business titans. Everything that the experts told us wasn't going on. They told us that when we saw censorship, violations of our rights to free speech on social media, that we were wrong. She admits it. She describes it specifically. The pact was formalized in a terse, little-noticed joint statement of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the AFL-CIO published on Election Day. Both sides would come to see it as sort of an implicit bargain inspired by the summer's massive, sometimes destructive, sometimes destructive. There were 26 people murdered and over $2 billion worth of property damage. Sometimes destructive, massively destructive. That's how the left lies. Social justice protests in which the forces of labor came together with the forces of capital to keep the peace and oppose Trump's assault on democracy. You see how they frame it as we're righteous, we're doing the right thing. Now, I don't know if Molly Ball is just stupid or if she's really in on the conspiracy, but we now know because we've seen all the paperwork. And people like Zuckerberg have essentially had a resurrection of his thinking on Forgiveness Friday, and now is trying to frame himself not as that lunatic leftist control freak that he is. Okay, and what she said, they go on to describe in here, not in this paragraph, but another one. I'm just going to read one more sentence. The handshake between business and labor was just one component of a vast cross-partisan campaign. By the way, cross-partisan, that's the left's way of saying, see, it's Trump. It's not the Republicans. That's the John Thunes of the world, cross-partisans, traitors. Campaign to protect the election, an extraordinary shadow effort dedicated not to winning the vote, but to ensuring it would be free and fair, credible and uncorrupted. See what she does there? Oh, no, we're not trying to corrupt it. We want it to be free and fair. No, that's not true. Just like that woman describes in the video, Zuckerberg bribed the election offices around the country in the swing states, in the particular districts, one of the things they go on to talk about is that they would tell them where they wanted the drop boxes exactly. And by the way, you'll not be surprised, stop me if you've heard this, the drop boxes only went to Democrat strongholds in the swing districts. So if you wanted to return a ballot and you were in a Republican area, you had to drive further just to make it harder on you, okay? And it got worse than that too. Just wanted sort of, as we're in this election cycle with LA and California in the fraud, it's been going on for a long time. Go read that. That Time article is in my thread, The Ord American on X, or email me, The Ordinary American, and I'll send you a link if you can't find it. That's a critically important thing. It's what I said yesterday in the great movie, The Big Short, when they're talking to the mortgage brokers and they're asking, why are the mortgage brokers sort of admitting to fraud? And one of the guys says, they're not admitting to fraud, they're bragging about how great they are. They don't see it as fraud. Same thing here. Molly Ball is bragging. She's saying, see, we're so smart. We knew we needed to save democracy. You don't save democracy by destroying democracy. That is not a thing. Not a thing at all. All right, that was from yesterday. I wanted to go over that because I think it was important for us to see the Time magazine article that they wrote about these things. All right, I want to do, so today is SpaceX. It's their debut. They came out at $135 a share. I think they were valued at 1.77 trillion. Okay, and they traded up right away. And now I think last time I checked, they were trading at about 170 something dollars. So that's, a good start for them. That is what, 30% rise. Okay, that's Elon Musk, who's got a second company. It's SpaceX. So he's got SpaceX and Tesla. Both are in the top 10 most valuable companies in the world. Okay, now, why is that awesome? That's awesome because we're America. Elon Musk comes to America from South Africa and he builds businesses. And he builds businesses that are changing the world and doing great things. Now, I am not a big fan of some of what Tesla has done. I'm not a big fan when they got money from the government. Okay? But he grew it and it worked and he paid it back. Okay? I'm not a big fan of the tax credits for people to buy Teslas. Teslas are expensive. Those were working people subsidizing the luxury beliefs of the upper class. Not a fan. But I don't have to have purity. Overall, he does amazing and wonderful things. SpaceX going up. We want it to succeed. Okay? What am I going to show you next? I'm going to just remind you of Tim Walz, Democrat that he is, and what, let's see if I can get that up there. This is him at one point talking about rooting for Tesla to fail. Listen to this.
You know this on the iPhone. They've got that little stock app. I added Tesla to it to give me a little boost during the day.
Listen to the
225 and dropping. So, and if you own one, we're not blaming you. You can take dental floss and pull the Tesla thing off, and take out. Just telling you.
Okay. Rooting against America. Rooting against Americans. The Democrats don't love America. They love power. I mention it a lot. James Carville said the only moral imperative is power. Why? Because we can't do anything if we don't have power. Get power. Okay? SpaceX is just another example of the benefits of a free market society. And that's, by the way, came about in a time that, from my point of view, we haven't been as much of a free market as we should have been. Part of the promise of America is that free of the constraints of government, free of government planners trying to plan everything which they can't do, what ends up happening is the individual's creativity and know-how and imagination can get unleashed. And Elon is a great example of that. People are caught up in, no, he's a trillionaire now. I hope he becomes a 2x trillionaire, and a 3 and a 5x trillionaire. I hope all of you become trillionaires. I want to become a trillionaire. I want everybody to do well. The left roots against people doing well and convinces people that if one person does well, it means you are getting taken from. That is not true. Okay, that is not true. Today's a great day. SpaceX is coming public. It's public now. I suspect, who am I? I suspect that over time, I'm not the only one saying this, that Tesla and SpaceX will merge. And within Tesla and within SpaceX, he owns Bitcoin, I think, in both. He owns a bunch of things. It's an amazing company. It's worth studying. Okay. Now, I want to do a little film study with our good friend, who I don't even know. I just repeated a line from Rocky 2. If you know it, and Rocky 1 50 years ago, around the 200th anniversary, came out. All right. This is our good friend, Susan Kokinda, who I don't even know. Okay. We're going to play a little bit of her most recent midweek update. And well, let's just play it, and I'm going to stop it a couple of times. Hold on. All right, is it up? Yeah, it's up. Okay, hold on.
Now, this is the great game, and it's been going on for well over a century. Ukraine isn't a fight for democracy. It's a proxy. It's a pawn on the board the British have been playing since the 19th century, the one that says Russia has to be crushed to clear the path for the empire to control the Eurasian heartland. So they push NATO and the missiles closer and closer and closer to Russia's border until Russia says no. And then they feed the proxy into the fire, and they call it a fight for democracy. Now, Anchorage was Donald Trump trying to end that game. Russia and the United States talking directly with the offer to bring Ukraine in as a nation, not a proxy. And that's why London said no. And that's why Zelensky said no. And that's why he now wants the game masters officially back at the table.
Okay, she's going to transition here, and we're going to get back to it, to the Middle East. This is, again, where all the experts were wrong. Everything that I was looking at the last 48 hours, really, was showing us the experts were wrong. We got to save democracy. The Russians are the evil ones. Zelensky's awesome. By the way, Zelensky has had martial law for I don't know how long. There's not been free and fair elections there. Okay, and us sheeple Democrats here just go for it, and you help the Democrats funnel our money. As I mentioned earlier, Tulsi Gabbard released information showing that we were paying for biolabs to do gain-of-function research in Ukraine. Okay, how much of that 100 billion plus that we've given went to that gain-of-function research? You Democrats that take this bait and you go help them do this stuff. Ukraine is not the fight for democracy. What Trump is doing is changing the dynamic. One-on-one meetings. No UN, no nothing. Sovereign nations. He wants an end to the war because he wants commerce, not conflict. The British Empire, the neocons, the globalists, they want conflict. It's how they get rich. They get rich extracting wealth during these kinds of conflicts. She transitions here now to the Middle East.
So that's one front. Now watch what happens on the other. The same imperial architecture operates in the Mideast. Different proxies. And in the Mideast, the empire has been cultivating proxies for a long time, since it created the Muslim Brotherhood and revisionist Zionism and other radical formations. Same management, and for decades, the American establishment has played its assigned role as one of the biggest proxies in an eternal great game. Donald Trump's recent national security strategy says no. We're a sovereign nation, and we look at each nation as equal, and Israel is on the same footing as our Arab allies. Here's how the NSS describes our new position in the Mideast. The United States retains the most enviable position, reinforced by President Trump's successful revitalization of our alliances in the Gulf with other Arab partners and with Israel. Our Arab partners and with Israel. And yes, Israel has its interests, and we have ours, as J.D. Vance drilled down on.
We're going to come to that in a second. We're finding that out now. This was, by the way, this video was recorded before this latest breakthrough in the peace over in Iran. This is critical. This is another one of these leftist nonsense things. The Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens people trying to infiltrate the MAGA movement, trying to create conflict and say Israel's the bad guy. They are not the bad guy. Israel is a great ally of the United States. Great. And all that is manipulation to try to thwart Trump from fixing the situation in the Middle East. Israel does not lead us around. We saw the other day, Trump, had harsh words for Netanyahu. And Netanyahu said, you know, we're adults. Sometimes we have to get a little aggressive with each other, and we have a great relationship. That's what Trump's doing. And I've pointed to that national security strategy often. It's published. You don't think he has a plan? Go read it.
That in his interview with Jesse Waters.
The Israelis in the United States, we have a lot of shared interests, but we also have some situations where our interests diverge. And I think where the president has been very clear here is that while Israel obviously has some objectives that it has, the United States' main objective in Iran is to ensure that Iran does not have a nuclear weapon. And we've actually, thanks to what's happened over the last few months, but really over the last year and a half, we've created the space necessary where the president believes, and I think that he's right, that we can get the long-term settlement to Iran's nuclear deal. Now, Israel may like that, they may not like that, but fundamentally, we think this is in the best interest of the United States of America.
Did you catch that? They may like that, they may not. The vice president of the United States just said out loud that Israel's preferences are not the driver of America's policy. And this comes on the heels of the president's leaked F-bomb-laden confrontations with Bibi Netanyahu and administration revelations that Israel may be spying on Trump's Iran negotiators. So this is different. This is not the stuff of Israel runs the United States narrative, which occupies so much of the social media universe. The United States has its own strategy now. We're acting in our interests, not off of the old geopolitical playbook. And this is exactly what terrifies them. Because if Trump can treat Iran as a nation, not a proxy,
listen,
and get a deal that's stronger than a bomb, the entire architecture is exposed as unnecessary. And that architecture is being exposed in Ukraine, where King Charles and Starmer and Mertz and Macron and the think tanks keep their proxy in the game long after a settlement could have been made. Trump is setting new rules, one where sovereign nations are the principals, not global elites directing their pawns. A world where Iran could function as a nation again, where Russia is allowed to have legitimate interests, and Israel functions in the actual interests of its people. That's the fight for me.
Okay. This is, by the way, I say it all the time about Susan and Barbara. If you're not listening to them, you really are missing out. You really need to get on board, sign up for their newsletter. You'll get notices of their videos, and you can read their newsletters. These two women, and Adam and I forgot the other guy's name now. I should remember it. Stager, I think is his last name. They are opening eyes. They are showing us. They certainly are showing me, since I found them whenever it was, a year or two ago, that the world is not as simple as maybe my brain would like to say. Russia good, Russia bad. No, it's not that simple. Israel good, Israel bad. They're our ally. But as you just heard, maybe they're spying on us. Trump says, J.D. Vance says, we get along, and then there are some places where we differ. But ultimately, we're the big brother. Okay, it's going to be us negotiating on our behalf. And you see that now. We're going to wait and see how it plays out. Commerce over conflict. Trump is trying to set up all these alliances in the Middle East so that people have skin in the game, money in the game. It's harder to walk away or go to war when your companies and when your country have relationships based around commerce. He knows that. Listen to what the Crown Prince was saying. The Ayatollah, the Iranians, they're awful. We got to get rid of them. Why? Because they're expansionary. They're always needing to expand. Why would they need to expand? Because leftism doesn't work. You don't grow anything. Israel doesn't expand. Israel's not saying, I need more of Jordan. No. Why? Because they have an economy, it's growing, and they're fine. I don't see Saudi Arabia trying to expand. I saw Iraq back in the day with Saddam trying to expand when they took over Kuwait, or tried to. Leftism needs to expand. The problem for the Democrats and the leftists in America is that there's just no evidence that leftism has ever worked. There's also no evidence that Trump's a leftist or a Nazi. As you heard the Crown Prince say, one of the hallmarks of Nazism or leftism or socialism or fascism is an expansionary mindset. That is not Trump. All right. I want to save a couple of minutes for two things. Forgiveness Friday here in a second. But I've been doing more and more lately on the medical stuff. I put up a post today that linked to what is called Muse Cell Innovation, which is the Zawa website for stem cells in America. You can use it to find where you might go in Florida, Tennessee, and Utah in the US to use Muse stem cells. Muse stem cells, I've been into it before. You go listen to yesterday's episode, but they're the most advanced form of stem cells, very pluripotent, meaning they can change into anything, very anti-tumorigenic, meaning they won't grow tumors, and very resistant to diminishing of its powers. So they will stick around and help regrow and regenerate cartilage, other things, ligaments. I hope to be able to use them myself. Okay, here's something else that's come through that I wanted to just sort of mention. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. This guy, I don't know this guy. I read his stuff sometimes. He's on X. He does a lot of wellness stuff, a lot of working out stuff. He put up a post that I saw that I thought was pretty darn good. He lists out a whole bunch of things in different time frames that the medical world told us were true. This guy, Sam Ahuli, I'm not vouching for him. I don't know him. I just like this piece. By the way, if you go onto my X, you'll see it. I also put this link into Grok, and Grok confirmed that the facts in this are right. So what he says is in year 1949, a Nobel Prize winning doctor, he won a Nobel Prize for essentially inventing the labotomy, where they essentially cut off a piece of your frontal lobe, if I'm understanding that right. And there were like 50,000 of them done in the US until we figured out, oh, that's a stupid idea. But he won a Nobel Prize for that. Okay, the experts are wrong. Okay, they hurt a lot of people because they were wrong. Okay, 1956, Dr. Spock with his book about, I forget the name of it, the book about babies, when they told us, don't put babies on their back, they'll choke. You got to put them on their stomach. All of a sudden, there was a thing called SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. When they got smart, I think it was in the early 90s, and said, no, don't put them on their stomach, put the infant on its back. SIDS death went down, if I remember the numbers, by 50%. Okay? Experts told us they were right. They weren't. They caused suffering for people. What's this one? This one is about, this was about menopause, saying that it's like being castrated and that they have to be on lifetime drugs. Nobody mentions that the author sat on the payroll of the company that made the drug that they recommended. What, does that sound familiar? Sound a little familiar for today? Okay, thank goodness we got Kennedy involved. By the way, I read before I came on air, I think it's fake, but I read that he might be leaving. I'm a little surprised he's lasted this long, but I want him to stay longer. We'll see if that's wrong or that's right. There's something about ulcers. Here's one about butter. Butter was supposed to be dangerous, so they gave us margarine. We find out margarine's way worse. Okay, here's the food pyramid. Guess what? We find out that's not right. It doesn't say it in here, but there was a Harvard study that was commissioned by the sugar industry to say that fat was the problem. Fat is not the problem. Our brains need cholesterol. Okay, there's another, was there another one in here I want to say? No, okay. So there's a bunch. Now he has another piece he put out recently about statins. We find out that statins rob the brain of cholesterol, which we need. These are experts who are wrong. I've talked a lot about ivermectin, a lot about, oh, I did want to mention something. Ivermectin reminded me. Finish this thought and then I'll get to that. The experts don't know what they don't know, but they come out with all that stuff and they say, go do it. And people get hurt. When we have people taking ivermectin all over the world, millions of people in Africa, and now in the US, and the medical community, the experts, tell us, well, you don't want to take that till we have a triple blind study. What, a triple blind study like you did with the vaccine for COVID? Or a triple blind study like you were doing with some of these other things? I'll take a pass and listen to the people who have been taking it themselves, like me, saying that there are no adverse side effects. Quick plug, not a sponsor, All Family Pharmacy. I'll put a link to them. They have been the best price I have found to get over-the-counter ivermectin and fenbendazole. Okay, all right, before I get to Forgiveness Friday, I did want to mention that I saw a piece, it's making the rounds, I'm sure you'll see it. It is about the company Palantir and their work with the hospital in Tampa General Hospital, I think, and how using their AI to look into patients' data They've been able to discover an early case of sepsis and thwart it. And it's resulted, I believe, if I remember correctly, in a 50% drop in deaths from sepsis. Sepsis is an infection where the body overreacts, builds a cytokine storm, and the autoimmune system goes hoopy, and it causes essentially organ failure because it attacks the organs and the person dies. The AI was able to read the data that humans weren't able to read and say, this person is early sepsis. Not only, which this is crass, but it needs to be said, it saves money because finding it later and putting somebody in the ICU and doing all those treatments costs way more money than just doing it early and avoiding it. That's AI. Now, I suspect over time, instead of needing Palantir to do it for them, hospitals will have somebody who does their own AI because AI will be doing this on its own, and we won't even need Palantir. That's a ways in the future. But that's a way that AI is helping bring better results for us all. Okay, let's go and end with Forgiveness Friday. Forgiveness Friday, you know my point of view if you watch the show. Forgiveness is really one of the great tools. It's a foundational concept in Christianity, but it's a great tool for society and for individuals to live more meaningful lives. Why? When I hold resentments, it hurts me. It does not hurt the other person. When I am angry, that's the opposite of forgiveness. I want to use this Carmelo Anthony murder trial as an example to talk about how powerful forgiveness could be. For all of you Black Americans out there who are screaming and yelling and say this is an example of racism, no, it's not. Read the case. There was nothing racist about it. If you are just spouting that off and you haven't read the case, you are part of the problem. Okay? There is systemic racism, but that's not it. Try going and looking into your community in the schools. The schools controlled by Democrats for 50 years or longer all suck. Mostly in the Black communities, the schools are illiteracy factories. Look at the stats. Democrat controlled, and you keep voting for them. In the Carmelo Anthony case, read the case. I'm not going to go into the specifics. What I am going to say is, even if you don't read the case, if you have forgiveness for whatever you perceive to be the problem, all white people, the judge, the jurors, whoever you perceive to be the problem, you have the choice to deploy forgiveness. You can look into your heart, you can pray about it, and you don't even have to change your point of view. This is the power of forgiveness. You can cling to the wrong point of view and still come out in a better place by forgiving. I don't know the family, Metcalf is it, of the son who was murdered. And he was murdered. And I can't and don't want to ever have to experience that. And my heart goes out for them and I pray for them. I would also say to them at some point, and this probably is not the right time, forgiveness is available to them too. And I don't know if they're Christians, and if they are, they probably know this and they will probably deploy it. But it will make their lives better. One of the macro reasons why forgiveness is so powerful to all of us is that God wants us, commands us to love each other like he loves us. We can't do that when we hate each other. This is leftism, oppressor, oppressed. Hate them. I'm going to get on top and then you're going to be the oppressed. I'm going to get you. That's the lack of forgiveness. This is one of the critical reasons why the left cannot have Christianity in its society. You cannot have the Old Testament, the Torah, or the Bible. And yes, I know that the Old Testament and the Torah are slightly different, but the Judeo-Christian principles are in the full Bible. You can't have it in a society if leftism needs to take over, partly because of forgiveness. Because even if you believe you're oppressed, as a Christian, you're commanded to forgive. We say it in the Lord's Prayer every day, we say it. Okay? Forgiveness Friday. As I say always, I got to work on forgiving the Democrats. I do. It's a constant effort on my part. But it's for me, it's not for them. All right. Forgiveness Friday. By the way, I hope if you stuck around, I hope you got something from that. I know some people have said, "Oh, we don't like, the religious stuff at the end." Listen, I want every person. I want to get 1 million viewers for this, but I'm not going to not include this stuff. It's too important. So I hope you'll stick with it, even when we do Forgiveness Friday at the end, or when we talked the other day, we talked about the study from University of Maryland that talked about the power of prayer. Now in a study that it relieves suffering and pain, both physical and mental. I hope you'll stick with it in the future and pass it on. Tremendous gift. And the battle here is a spiritual one. No way around that. All right. It's Friday. It's Forgiveness Friday. The great Father Mike Schmidt says he's praying for me. So I say, I'm praying for you. Hope you'll pray for me. Please like, subscribe, and follow. Pass it on, make comments, send us some notes on the email, theordinaryamerican@proton.me. Please go sign up at Promethean Action. That is just knowledge coming out of your computer constantly. You can't spend better time if you want to read up on what's really happening in the world from a geopolitical point of view, other than going to Promethean Action. We're going to pray for Trump. We're going to pray for peace in the Middle East. We'll be back here on Monday. I haven't decided yet whether we're going to do a weekend show, but we might. All right. Until Monday at